Season 1. Beneath the trembling sky, shadows stretched long across the city streets, and a sense of unease hung heavier than the smoke rising from the distant fires. People moved like ghosts, their faces pale, their hearts uncertain, unaware that the hour that would define everything was closer than they could imagine. Yishu Masih walked among them, calm, serene, yet with an intensity that demanded attention even from those who tried to ignore him. He whispered, almost inaudibly, yet so that it resonated inside the souls of those who would listen. "It all ends tomorrow just because of you." The words sank into the hearts of men and women alike, and suddenly the mundane became urgent, the ordinary transformed into something sacred and terrifying. Every thought, every intention, every hidden deed carried weight beyond comprehension. Yishu's gaze passed over a young man leaning against a crumbling wall, eyes hollow with despair and regret. "Do you understand the cost of your choices?" Yishu asked silently, and the young man flinched though no one spoke aloud. Farther down the street, a woman clutched her child tightly, rocking back and forth as if trying to shield him from a storm she could not see but could feel. Yishu's presence turned every small act into a profound pivot point, a moment that could determine not only individual fates, but the unfolding of events that no eye had yet seen. "Tomorrow is not simply a day," Yishu's voice echoed through the minds of the wandering crowd. "It is the culmination of everything you have ever done, every lie you have ever told, every kindness you have withheld, every act of courage and cowardice alike. Tomorrow depends on you. It ends because of the hearts that waver, the minds that hesitate, the spirits that falter." And as the night deepened, stars flickered above like distant, watchful eyes, indifferent yet silently recording every choice, every betrayal, every act of hope or despair. Some felt a stirring in their hearts, a sudden awareness of the path they had walked, the roads they had abandoned, the opportunities they had squandered. A merchant paused mid-step, hands clenched over the coins in his pocket, realizing that greed and fear had defined his life, that his actions had rippled outward in ways he could not undo. Yishu approached a small group, huddled in an alley, their whispers filled with secrets and conspiracy. Plotting against neighbors, plotting against themselves in ways they would only fully comprehend tomorrow. "You are the authors of the end," he said. And though no one could hear the words aloud, they felt them deep in their bones. Some wept quietly, some trembled, and some hardened their hearts, unwilling to face the truth that their hands, their minds, their very choices had created the precipice upon which the world teetered. Yet others, caught in a rare clarity, felt a spark of hope, realizing that within their grasp was the power to alter the course, to bend the flow of events toward redemption. And as the first light of dawn began to push through the horizon, subtle and slow, the city held its breath, suspended between the end and the possibility of renewal. Yishu Masih lifted his eyes toward the emerging sun, and in that moment, each person caught a glimpse of themselves as they truly were, naked of pretense, stripped of denial, confronted with the raw essence of their choices. "Do not underestimate your power," he murmured, and every whispered syllable reverberated across every heart capable of listening. Tomorrow, he knew, would reveal the consequences of accumulated actions, both great and small, and those who had ignored the whispers of conscience would feel the weight of eternity pressing upon them. Those who had acted with integrity, even in obscurity, would find strength in ways they could not yet comprehend. "It all ends," Yishu said again, "because you are the catalyst. You are the force, the seed, the spark. In the decisions you make tonight, in the resolve you muster or fail to muster, lies the difference between despair and illumination. Choose, act, awaken, for tomorrow waits, inevitable and relentless." And in that night, stretched to its limit by fear and possibility, the city, the people, and the unseen world beyond observed as every choice began to align, diverge, collide, and fuse in preparation for the hour that would declare the fate of all. Every heartbeat became louder in its significance, every breath a measure of accountability. And Yishu, silent yet omnipresent, continued to walk among them, carrying the awareness that the culmination of existence itself depended not on fate alone, but on the courage, wisdom, and responsibility of every single soul present. As the night deepened toward its zenith, whispers of old regrets merged with visions of possible futures, and the air became thick with tension, anticipation, and the almost tangible presence of destiny. For tomorrow it would all end, and yet in that ending lay the possibility of a beginning, a turning, a redemption that only those awake to the truth could grasp. Yishu Masih moved through the alleys, through the crowded squares, past closed doors and open windows, observing, reminding, and awakening, until the first rays of light would signal not merely a new day, but the decisive hour of reckoning that all would confront, unwillingly or consciously, depending entirely on their own hearts and choices. The city slept fitfully beneath a sky that was neither fully dark nor completely bright, a twilight suspended between fear and revelation, a threshold of consciousness where every soul teetered on the edge of awakening or despair. Yishu Masih's presence moved through the streets like an unseen wind, touching hearts, stirring memories, and opening doors of perception that had long been sealed. He paused at the edge of a bridge overlooking the river, where water flowed silently, carrying reflections of the fractured lives along its banks. A young woman leaned against the railing, her eyes fixed on the currents below, yet she saw nothing. Her mind was crowded with the weight of unspoken guilt and the endless questions of survival and meaning. Yishu spoke to her not with sound, but with a presence that resonated in the center of her being. "Do you understand the power you hold?" he asked internally, and her heart leapt with recognition. She had avoided accountability for years, yet in this moment, the truth was unavoidable. Every hesitation, every avoidance, every lie that had passed unexamined now bore consequences. Invisible, yet insistent, ready to manifest in the events of the coming day. Around the city, other individuals felt the same pulse of awakening, some with joy, some with panic. A man in the market, known for his cruelty to strangers, felt a sudden physical recoil as if unseen chains had bound him to his past, and the whisper of Yishu's presence demanded honesty, reflection, and courage. In a small chapel at the city's edge, a priest sat alone, clutching an ancient book, contemplating the words he had often read without fully understanding their depth. Tonight, Yishu's influence penetrated even his study of doctrine, revealing layers of truth, hypocrisy, and potential that stretched far beyond his comprehension. "The hour is near," Yishu's silent voice resonated in the priest's mind. "The culmination depends on awareness, action, and the integrity you claim but rarely exercise." Elsewhere, children dreamed of impossible landscapes. Yet even in sleep, they sensed urgency, a divine whisper that the end of one chapter and the beginning of another depended not on fate alone, but on the consciousness of the living. The streets, though outwardly quiet, hummed with unseen energies, each person's thoughts creating ripples, unseen yet palpable, converging toward the decisive moment. As Yishu moved among them, he observed not only the mistakes, but the latent potential, the unrecognized acts of kindness, the suppressed courage, the quiet endurance that had gone unnoticed, but would now determine the turning of events. The night deepened, yet light existed in subtle forms. A soft glow from windows where someone stayed awake, contemplating, praying, seeking, questioning, preparing. The city's heartbeat quickened, each pulse an indicator of accountability, each breath a measure of the responsibility that every soul bore. Yishu's gaze then fell upon a man huddled on the steps of an abandoned building, hands shaking, eyes red with exhaustion and tears. The man had wronged many, taken much, and lied endlessly to himself about the nature of morality. Yet in this moment, Yishu's presence offered clarity, a path toward acknowledgement, repentance, and ultimately transformation. "Tomorrow does not arrive as punishment," Yishu communicated silently. "It arrives as revelation. It arrives because of you, because of what you have chosen and what you have neglected. Change is your only means to confront it." The man trembled, feeling the weight of truth like an unseen hand pressing against his chest. He realized that he could either continue in avoidance and despair or confront his failures with courage and intention. Around the city, these moments multiplied. Some chose fear, some denial, and some chose action, though trembling and uncertain. Each choice shifted the balance, as though the threads of reality themselves were responsive to human awareness, aligning or unraveling depending on the integrity of the individual's heart. Yishu then led the young woman on the bridge through visions, not illusions, but possibilities. She saw herself reaching out to those she had ignored, speaking truths she had hidden, accepting responsibility for the consequences of her decisions. She saw the man in the market, the priest, and countless others, each connected through invisible threads of causality, their choices entangling and diverging in patterns she could scarcely comprehend. The city's awakening was uneven. Some hearts stirred with clarity, while others remained heavy with ignorance. Yet the unseen currents of destiny began to pulse with greater intensity as the night's end approached. Yishu Masih moved imperceptibly through the streets, a presence sensed rather than seen, entering the innermost recesses of human consciousness, where doubts festered and fears were hidden beneath layers of distraction. In a small tenement, a man named Elias sat hunched over a wooden table, his hands trembling as he examined the ledger of his life, tracing every action that had led him to the precipice of failure. He had lived years avoiding truth, avoiding confrontation, avoiding responsibility, and now he felt a pressure unlike anything he had known. Yishu's silent communication reached him directly, a voice within rather than without. "Tomorrow will reveal what you have allowed to grow unchecked. You have nurtured deception, greed, and neglect. Yet within you lies the seed of transformation. Should you awaken fully and act with integrity." Elias felt an almost unbearable tension in his chest, an urgent summons from the universe that demanded reckoning. Across the city, similar awakenings occurred. Children playing in the alleys paused mid-step, sensing that the world around them was not as stable as it seemed, that some invisible force was orchestrating events far beyond their comprehension, that the culmination of countless choices was drawing near. A mother in a dimly lit apartment clutched her infant, her thoughts racing with fear and hope, realizing for the first time that the way she had nurtured love or withheld it would contribute to outcomes she had never imagined. Yishu's presence touched her consciousness, guiding her attention to the choices she could still make in the dwindling hours before dawn, showing her that even small acts of honesty, care, and courage could reverberate through the lives of countless others. The streets themselves seemed alive with anticipation. Shadows stretched unnaturally long, responding to the human energies swirling through the city. Merchants, beggars, scholars, and thieves alike felt the pull of destiny, a weight upon their souls, an invisible scrutiny that was both terrifying and liberating. In a secluded garden, a scholar named Miriam reflected on her work, her mind a tangle of unfulfilled purpose and hidden ambitions. Yishu's consciousness entered her mind like a gentle tide, revealing the true impact of her intentions. Your research, your influence, your hidden counsel, each ripple matters. Even your silences, your decisions to remain idle, shape the collective course. You are a node in the network of consequences, a thread in the fabric of tomorrow. Miriam's chest tightened as she realized the gravity of inaction, the magnitude of choices deferred and responsibilities ignored. The night deepened further, yet a growing light of awareness spread through those who could perceive it. A street painter stopped his work mid-brushstroke, suddenly aware that the colors he applied carried significance far beyond aesthetics. They reflected the emotional states and decisions of those around him, subtly influencing perception, mood, and readiness for the coming trial. Nearby, a young woman named Leora, who had spent years chasing personal gain at the expense of compassion, felt an unprecedented clarity. She understood that every slight, every unkind word, every missed opportunity to help, had compounded into a network of cause and effect that would manifest tomorrow in ways she could no longer ignore. Yishu's guidance was subtle, yet unmistakable. Threading through the city like an invisible conductor, orchestrating a symphony of accountability, choice, and potential redemption. In a church atop the highest hill, the priest stared at the rising light, overwhelmed by the sudden comprehension of his role. The teachings he had recited for decades now struck him with a force that made each word tremble with newfound meaning. Tomorrow will distinguish those who act from those who merely exist, Yishu's silent presence communicated. Every hesitation, every rationalization, every avoidance will contribute to the final reckoning. The end is determined by action, not inevitability. The realization spread like wildfire, and within the interconnected web of human consciousness, patterns began to shift. Some hearts hardened, some softened, and others shattered with the weight of self-realization. In the poorer quarters, a boy named Tomas confronted the truth about his own bitterness and resentment. Understanding for the first time that his anger had not only harmed him, but radiated outward, influencing the interactions of neighbors, peers, and strangers alike. The insight was painful, yet illuminating. It revealed the potency of intention, the consequences of thought, the urgency of rectification. Meanwhile, in the city square, the convergence of human energy created a subtle resonance, a harmonic of morality and awareness that pulsed invisibly through the air. Yishu's consciousness observed the patterns, noting where intervention was necessary and where guidance could be minimal. For free will remained absolute, and the weight of accountability was precisely calibrated to the awareness of each individual. A group of children playing near the fountain began to act with unexpected kindness, sharing resources, comforting one another, inadvertently shifting the moral balance of their surrounding neighborhood. Elsewhere, an elderly man who had long avoided responsibility found himself compelled to speak truth to those he had deceived. And the act, though small, sent ripples outward, correcting trajectories and alleviating potential consequences. Yishu's presence flowed from soul to soul, orchestrating an intricate network of awakening, ensuring that even the smallest choices were recognized, their importance magnified in the context of the approaching day. Each heartbeat, each decision, each moment of recognition or neglect became a node in a vast tapestry, the culmination of which would determine not only the fate of individuals, but the unfolding of events across the city and beyond. And as dawn approached, subtle yet irreversible changes occurred. Relationships shifted, perceptions clarified, courage ignited, and clarity replaced confusion. Yishu's silent guidance had illuminated the path for those willing to see, to accept, and to act. The final night, stretched to its maximum tension, prepared every conscious mind for the inevitable confrontation with consequences. Tomorrow, as promised, would mark an ending, and the nature of that ending rested entirely upon the awareness, responsibility, and decisions of the living. The world hung suspended, a delicate equilibrium of potential, poised between despair and illumination, between collapse and transformation. Every thought, every action, every conscious decision contributed to the tipping point, and Yishu's presence, while gentle and unobtrusive, ensured that no act, however hidden, escaped recognition. And in that critical moment before the first rays of definitive light, the city collectively inhaled. The pulse of life, morality, and consequence synchronizing across thousands of hearts, ready to face the ultimate revelation. The culmination of human choice, divine guidance, and moral responsibility had converged, and Yishu Masih, serene yet intensely aware, moved silently among them, witnessing the final preparations of consciousness itself as the decisive day. The day that would end because of human actions was poised to begin. The dawn's first light barely touched the horizon when the city's heartbeat shifted, subtle yet profound, as if every street, alley, and rooftop held its breath in anticipation. Yishu Masih moved like a quiet current beneath the surface of perception, touching the consciousness of those who could hear, feel, and comprehend the weight of what was coming. In a small workshop on the outskirts, a craftsman named Rafik paused mid-task, hammer in hand, realizing that the years of neglect, compromises, and silent indulgence had led him here, to a precipice of moral and spiritual consequence he could no longer ignore. Yishu's presence entered his mind, not as words, but as clarity, as a light illuminating every corner he had hidden from himself. Tomorrow, the culmination will not forgive what you have ignored. Every act of carelessness, every lie, every small compromise contributes to the outcome. Yet there is still a path of rectification, though it demands courage, honesty, and decisiveness. Rafiq trembled, recognizing that he could no longer continue in avoidance. The weight of destiny pressed against him, demanding action. Meanwhile, across the city, a young teacher named Sophia sat in the empty classroom, staring at the chalkboard. Her mind racing with unspoken truths and the countless moments she had turned away from her students' needs in pursuit of comfort or recognition. Yishu's silent presence guided her awareness. The lives you touch ripple outward. Your patience, your attention, your integrity. Each of these is a thread in the tapestry that determines tomorrow's reality. Act with courage, speak truth, embody wisdom. Sophia felt a sudden resolve, a fire igniting within her chest, a determination to meet the coming day with clarity and moral fortitude. In the marketplace, merchants and street vendors paused in their routines as an invisible weight seemed to press upon every transaction, every exchange, every glance. Small decisions, whether to cheat, to lie, to hoard, to help, suddenly carried a magnitude previously unimagined. Those attuned to Yishu's presence felt the moral fabric of their actions tremble, and many froze, considering the unseen consequences that would unfold in less than a day. A group of children ran along the central square, and even their innocent play carried